Good afternoon. I'm going to call the regular council meeting of Monday, June 13th, 2022 at 5 p.m. First item on the agenda, item 1.1, conflict of interest declaration, pecuniary or non-pecuniary. Is there any in the room this afternoon? Councillor Sailer.
I have a non-pecuniary conflict of interest with item 13.1.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to acceptance of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda this afternoon? Deputy Mayor Abrey.
Thank you, Mayor Rijn. Under new business, I'd like to add land recognition.
Okay, that'll be item 8.1. Any other additions to the agenda this afternoon? Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. I have an addition under the new business and regarding legal fees and reporting to council.
And is this in general or specific?
It should be, it will be in general regarding administration procedural guidelines.
Okay, thank you. That'll be under item 8.2. And then I'd like to add under 8.3, under new business regarding the 2SL GBTQ plus community members and inclusiveness. Any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none, can I make someone or get someone to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Thank you, Councillor Beekman. Moving on to item 3.1, the regular council meetings. Minutes from May 24th. Was there any errors or omissions in the meeting minutes? Seeing none, can I get someone to make a motion to adopt the minutes? Councillor Reis, thank you. I guess I should ask for a motion on that, eh? All those in favor? Carried unanimously, thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 7.1, the cemetery bylaw 854-R-06-22. All three readings this evening. Presenter is going to be Justin MacPherson, Director of Operational Services. Justin, when you're settled in, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to present the Town of Coaldale Cemetery Bylaw update. There's a couple reasons I want to bring this to your attention tonight. The Town of Coaldale recently received a very generous anonymous donation of trees for the cemetery. The donor will be supplying and installing 45 new trees to finish off the rows of trees in the cemetery. So that triggered a couple things. The Parks and Recreation Department, with Russ at the head, is currently working on an expansion of the existing irrigation system to provide the best opportunities for those trees to thrive, because we don't want to accept the donation and then watch the trees wither away. And I would say usually under dry conditions, but that seems to be quite a bit different today. So the operations department, we're also working on some concrete upgrades out there, just finishing off things that have just been left in the past, just making it look quite a bit nicer. And we're working on options to upgrade the road in front of the cemetery, but that is something I'll be bringing to the council in the future, as that's a much larger project than a little bit of concrete here and there. So, a couple of things that we are bringing, that I am bringing. We took this opportunity to review the current layout of the reserve plots. The trees, we want them to thrive and live as long as possible, and we don't want to impact them while digging plots and moving heavy equipment in and out. So I've updated the plot layout. As you can see, the image in the bylaw, it changes how the reserve plots, where they're laid out. They'll be laid out at the other side of the cemetery together, instead of laid out on the edges of either side of the cemetery. That will allow us to sell the plots that are currently there as a case-by-case basis like we do, and then have a section of reserve plots. It will make quite a few things easier, digging the plots, moving equipment in and out of the plots, and avoid us having to move headstones in case one of the reserve plots are sold quite a bit longer after, like if a couple pass away and one's, decades later, it presents some problems of having to get heavy equipment in there. And there are some equipment options we can approach for those existing ones, but what I wanted to do with this is limit those those problems in the future for the town. One of the other large changes I made that I'm recommending in this bylaw is changing the interment timeline and notification timeline for our town office. There's a couple reasons we're doing this. In the summer, it's relatively easy to get out there, move a couple headstones if we have to, dig a grave, have it ready to go for a funeral. And in winter, it presents some other problems like frost. So currently the bylaw requires 1.5 days in the summer and 3 days in winter. What I'm proposing is 2 days in the summer and 4 days in the winter. There's one other note I have to make to this. I just got off the phone with Eden's, the director, Brad, there, because I got feedback from the funeral homes about these changes. One thing he pointed out to me that I need to change, there's a spelling error in the bylaw. It's page 6 of the bylaw, point 36. It should be interment, not internment, so I would also like to change that. That's completely the wrong word, and he made me aware of it, so. I'm opening the floor to any questions from Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Justin. Are there any questions for Justin this evening? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Van Ryan, and through to Justin, thank you so much for doing this. And first of all, I'd like to also thank the anonymous donor that has contributed to 45 trees. I certainly appreciate that generosity, and I would like to ask if we can possibly acknowledge them as, and even though they are anonymous, and in some way of recognition, and thank you to them for that. Just my question to you, and speaking in support of your proposals, I just wanted to kind of get an idea from you in terms of the mapping as to where you would like to start the plots from. I think you wanted to start from one direction and work backwards or towards the middle, or how are you looking at that? I just seem to be a little confused in terms of the proposal for burial.
Yeah, so if you have the map open, which is on page 16 of 16 on the bylaw, the east side is the side we are growing the cemetery from as we go down the rows. And on that east side, the north and south, 4 sections, 4 plots have been reserved historically. Yep, that's the page there. So the north and south of each row have been the 4 reserved plots, and we sell those plots when one member of the family passes away, and then we sell both of the plots, and then we can go back in there later and fill the second plot. That has created some issues with access in the past. However, we've mitigated those issues. And as we grow out, it's apparent that those issues are going to keep growing. And it's not the best look to have kind of those empty plots among those full plots. So we don't think it's the most attractive way to do this. After some heavy consideration of how to make this work the best way possible with the land, while not losing any plots over the long term, because we don't want to limit how much space we have, this is the best solution we came up with. And then that's growing the reserve plots from the west side while still maintaining the east side for anyone who just buys a plot, they come in and they just get the next plot that's reserved to them. So we can go in, dig it easily, they get buried there, and we cover it and walk away. If that makes sense. And the pink is the reserve plots that are, the pink on the east side of the reserve plots that are currently in place that we can't change. And then pink on the west side are the ones that we're now proposing, and the rest of them would be open plots to sell as they fill.
The west end would be to my left?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so the map, the north arrow is pointing straight up.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chapman. Question for you, Justin. What's the timeline on getting this project done?
The project for the concrete is already, the concrete's in, just needs to be finished. The irrigation we are currently getting quotes on. I would have to talk to Russ on the timeline, but as soon as possible, because we want to plant those trees sooner than later. We're trying to get it all done as soon as possible to give those trees the best chance. We're avoiding planting them in August. That's our goal here. So.
And what kind of trees are they going to be?
I'm sorry, I can't answer. I'm not sure. I can ask our arborist and ask the donator
that's okay.
The tree experts.
Like
I
the
apologize.
existing ones, are they evergreens or that? Or
Yeah, it's the
no?
same as the existing ones. We're going to continue those rows of trees.
Okay.
So they match.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Reis, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Through to Justin, I have a question not really related to the trees, but just good to know. How many years do you think that this cemetery can, like, how many plots do you think there are? How many years will this last before we have to look at new cemetery land?
Through the chair to Councillor Reis, that's a great question. It's something we've been discussing in the background because it is a smaller footprint that we're dealing with here. You can see the open plots between the two pink shades that's essentially what we have left for open plots. The trend is about, if we keep the trend that we had for the last 10 years, we have about 8 to 10 years left. So it's something we have to start considering as a town to find land that's available and consider a cemetery expansion. So.
Okay. Thank you. So can I get someone to sponsor first reading, that council approve first reading of the cemetery bylaw 854-R-06-22? Councillor Beekman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a sponsor for second reading? Councillor Chapman. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And could I get someone to sponsor unanimous consent? Councillor Reis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And then I need someone to sponsor third and final reading of the cemetery bylaw 854-R-06-22. Councillor Sailer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Councillor Chapman, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. Those, that bylaw is passed with amendments as you,
Well, for that spelling.
The one spelling error,
Yeah.
yes.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7.2, the Area Structure Plan Policy P-005-06-22. And our presenter this afternoon is going to be Cameron Mills. Cameron, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Yes, I'm filling in for Melanie this evening, but she took the lead on preparing the report as well as drafting the policy, and I'm happy to present it on her behalf. So what we have here today is a policy that would govern the area structure plan process for the town. Now, the council is familiar, of course, with the area structure plan process and the area structure plans that entail from that process. What we identified as a department some time ago was that a policy would be helpful for us in terms of providing some formalization of the process that we're already engaging in terms of how the town of Coaldale approaches the preparation of these types of plans and our interactions with the development community in so doing. The Municipal Government Act is the piece of provincial legislation that provides the grounds for area structure plans, but tends to be very broad and general in nature. And so what's reflected in the policy presented is fundamentally simply a statement of what is already occurring from an administration's perspective. And what we're hoping to do, as we mentioned, is have an opportunity for council to see that, and if council so approves, approve that and sort of formalize that process. And then in turn, our plan is to take that process and provide sort of easier checklists and literature for those who are interested in pursuing the process to understand exactly what it is that the town is going to be asking of them should they choose to pursue it, and what they can sort of expect and how decisions will be made and that sort of thing. The idea is really to try to streamline the process and make it as clear as possible for anyone that seeks to engage in it. The development, as I mentioned, the policy as presented, and I won't go through the policy itself in detail. Council's had an opportunity to review it. Simply, as I stated, fundamentally provides a breakdown of what's already occurring from an administration's perspective. Though if council has questions about that process or wants to see things done differently, this is an opportunity for us to discuss that.
So this will be the first point of information for someone walking in the door interested in doing something, and you'll just give them this document.
Fundamentally, it would be a little different. I'd suggest we'd probably do a brochure or a pamphlet. This is fundamentally an internal document. It'd certainly be available to the public, of course, but we would likely provide things that are like checklists in nature and maybe provide some explanation for what things are and why we ask for them and that sort of thing. But this, the policy itself provides the justification administratively to say this is why we do it, and we all agree as an organization that this is what the process is and this is what our expectations are. It's not uncommon sometimes when a developer approaches, if we say, oh, okay, well, we need to understand stormwater, we need to understand this, for there to be pushback to say, oh, I don't want to provide that, I just want to present, I just want to go ahead and move forward with it. And so this provides us an opportunity to say, no, as an organization, we understand that these things are important, and we're not going to proceed forward with the plan until it's comprehensive enough and it provides all the detail that council and the community administration all expect. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Cameron? Okay, seeing none, can I get someone to make a motion that council approve or deny the area structure plan policy P-005-0622? Deputy Mayor Abrey.
That we approve the area structure policy.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Cameron. Okay, moving on to new business, item 8.1. And we have the land acknowledgement. Deputy Mayor Abrey, you want to speak to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Van Ryn. I know we've talked about it in previous meetings about doing a land acknowledgement before our council meeting, and I felt it was time that we bring it up and discuss it as council and see if it's something we want to do and should be doing going forward. I'm very much in favor of it because we are blessed to be living in this area, and we need to recognize those that were here before us. As well as that, I would also like to discuss the possibilities of, before we start our term in the new facility, having an elder come in and explain to administration and to council about the Truth and Reconciliation and moving forward, and actually smudging and explaining the importance of that cleansing to those that have never done it, and possibly asking administration to look into local Indigenous artists to paint a mural or a painting to put inside the foyer of the new facility.
Okay, thank you. So just for clarification, for the purpose of tonight's agenda item, then, we're going to ask administration to come back with some ideas on the land acknowledgement portion of this?
Yes, please.
Okay, so that'll be a standalone motion for that?
Yep.
Okay. And then when would you like that staff report to come back for?
If we could bring that for our July meeting, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
And then the other two I'll bring back in July, or we can bring them back in July, and then administration can have stuff to us before we move into the new facility.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any questions for Deputy Mayor Abrey? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Van Ryn. And just speaking a little bit with Deputy Mayor over the weekend, I appreciate this, his thoughts about this, and I know that we as council had spoken and talked about both items. The next one that you will be speaking about, Mayor, following this item, we spoke about it quite at depth at our retreat, and I think that we were all under the understanding, I think that collaboratively and emotionally, and I think just as a team, that we would allow the mayor to move that forward as he sees fit. I don't, I guess personally I was expecting the acknowledgement to start a lot sooner, especially right after the retreat, but we're here today, and if this is a will of council to consider that, as I said during the retreat, that I would certainly respect the decision of council and move that forward. On the other point of the I guess you'd call it an open house or grand opening of the new civic square, I would like to ask that administration bring forward, along with Deputy Mayor's thoughts about the spiritual Indigenous ceremony that would go with the grand opening, that we would include from our own community as well, members of our community who are key people who have had spiritual leadership in the past, and whether the Ministerial Association or whoever might want to be brought into this grand opening. I would certainly like to see the grand opening as well be received with invitations to our previous members of council, previous mayor and council, and of course previous members of council from the past years. And we can go right back to our living mayors, who would be Alan Graham, Alex Hahn, Dave Neufeld, and of course Duncan Lloyd and Kim Craig. So I would certainly like to see a more robust ceremony, along with the thoughts that Deputy Mayor Abrey is bringing forward.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. So the points that you're bringing up, those are discussions we can have as part of the organization of the grand
That's
opening.
correct.
So for the sake of agenda item 8.1, Deputy Mayor Abrey, would it be accurate if I was to say that that Council directs administration to come back to the next meeting on June 27th with land acknowledgement suggestions? Any more questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question on Deputy Mayor Abrey's motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And moving on to item 8.2, legal. Councillor Pickering.
Mayor Van Ryn, I would like for council to request a staff report regarding any lawsuits that the town of Coldwell is involved in that will be presented in closed session. Since the MJ requirement, when legal matters are discussed, currently the only way council finds out about the lawsuits is if a specific question is asked or if we see it in the line on the financial statement. As a part of staff report, I would like to have it show who, what, where, when, and why, and the dollar amounts involved, so that we don't have to guess or run into it without
Okay.
knowing.
So do you have a motion with that then?
Yeah, that I'd like council direct administration to provide a staff report for any lawsuits against the town of Coldwell when they are initiated, including regular updates upon statement that they will be discussed in a closed portion of a regular council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Van Ryn. Maybe just a question through to whether administration or even Councillor Pickering. I think that the concerns that I have with that motion, there are occasionally, from time to time, there are personnel issues that are involved with respect to cases either against the town or against other parties, and I'm not too sure how far that you'd want to go with that, being that there's some FOIPable information that would be required. But I would like to ask if administration has any further thoughts on that, but that would be my main concern with regarding to pending cases and financial numbers that go along with it. I think they come before council in closed session because they certainly do involve a personnel matter, and under the MGA that is eligible for an enclosed session.
So if I understand your question, Councillor Pickering, so if the town is being in a litigation, you want to be able to have a staff report in closed session that explains all the information regarding the court challenge, including costs and those sorts of things?
Yes, that's correct, Jack.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryn.
I'll open that up to our CAO. Is there anything that we need to add to that, or is that pretty well covered off?
No, I think that pretty well covers it off. If I understand correctly, this is just more of a go-forward expectation from council in terms of willingness to want to learn about these matters versus bring a report to council to update everything that's happening up until then, because that is something that we've discussed not too long ago, and there are no further updates to add to what's already been discussed with council. So my takeaway from this is that this is more of a go-forward, a formalized go-forward directive on how legal matters should be communicated with council. And then in terms of Councillor Chapman's question, if this isn't discussed in closed session, there wouldn't be a concern about privacy or FOIP. Council would be privy to information so long as they maintain it, the confidential nature of the information if it's discussed in closed session. So that wouldn't be a concern on that side.
Thank you, CAO Hastings, and through to the mayor. I would support the motion if the spirit of the motion means that these discussions will be taking place only in closed session, that they are not public domain conversations or reports.
Yes, so legal falls under closed session. Councillor Reis, you have a comment, question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Van Ryn, and through to Councillor Pickering. I guess my question is, are you just looking for more clarification from previous litigation that has happened?
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, it'd just be nice that we don't, like the last time when we got notified that there was a lawsuit on, we're not surprised, and then we have full clarification on what is happening and when and to who.
Okay, thank you.
And just a point of clarification, you're just asking from the beginning of our term, because we don't want to go back. Yes, okay. Okay, so one more time, if I could get you to read your motion back, please.
That council direct administration to provide staff report for any suits against. Council direct administration to provide a staff report for any lawsuits against the town of Coldell when they are initiated, including regular updates and upon settlement that will be discussed in closed portion of a regular council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 8.3 regarding the 2SL LGBTQ plus community members and inclusiveness. So I wanted to bring this forward as well because, again, this was something that we've discussed previously at our strat planning, and it's important for a council, for we as council must ensure that every single person that chooses to call Coaldale home should feel like they belong and that they are a valued member of our community. All town leaders, including mayor and council and management team, have the responsibility to ensure that all residents and staff are welcomed and treated with kindness and respect, regardless of their gender, ethnicity, ability, sexual orientation, or religion. This is the key to Coldale being a welcoming and inclusive community. We as council must commit to being a champion and advocate for all citizens of Coaldale. And with that being said, this month is Pride Month, and to support the Coaldale LGBTQ2S plus community, I would like to raise the issue of inclusivity in Coaldale and discuss what we can do as council to help make sure that all residents, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender, feel like they're a valued member of our community. So I'll open up that for any questions or comments. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Van Ryn. I've spoken before on this, both at the retreat and elsewhere. The fact that first of all, council and the town, the council and the town do have a policy on this. It's very, very clear that it's a policy that is supposed to be non-discriminatory. I can't think of the other words for it, but it is very, very clear in terms of matters of that, and I could use the fact that that makes it an inclusivity matter. Second to that is that I've always believed that our community is very welcoming on all fronts, and for those people also who are immigrant to this community, for Indigenous community, for those of other religious faiths, as well as those who bear the LGBTQ community. I think we are all very welcoming, and I would like to say for myself that I love and I embrace every person in this community for who they are and what they can bring to Coaldale.
Well said, Councillor Chapman, and I agree with everything you say. I think it's important that we do whatever needs to be done so that if somebody comes for a job interview and they see a posting, that there is discussion points that all of these things you brought up are covered off. And I think one way that we can proceed with this, if it's the will of council, is that we can have a committee work on different ideas on what needs to be brought up and what needs to be tweaked as far as anything to do with the hiring processes in Coaldale. Also on the town-owned facilities, again, I see that in Lethbridge and Edmonton, where they have signage on the door saying that everybody's welcome. However, that needs to be done. So several of us on the campaign trail had this come up, and as part of this committee, we can invite people from different organizations to participate so that we get it right. So with that being said, I did up a sample motion that can be tweaked if anybody's interested in sponsoring it. And that motion would be direct administration to come back with a staff report for our July 11th meeting on how the town of Coaldale can be strongly committed to the principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion to make sure that all persons, including racialized persons, persons of color, women, Indigenous persons, persons with disability, LGBTQ2S plus persons, and others feel welcome in our community. That's the motion that I have down as a sample. Does anybody wish to tweak that or use that one? Councillor Beekman.
Speaking in favor of the motion, I would sponsor that motion with saying that while some of us maybe don't feel that Coaldale is, or while some of us feel that maybe Coaldale is inclusive, some of us that don't fall inside the guidelines of those that suffer racial discrimination or discrimination by being a part of the 2S LGBTQ plus community, what they feel is, we have no concept of what they feel. So I feel that it's a small thing that the town of Coaldale can do to, inclusivity is extremely important, and I think this is a great step, and I'll support that motion.
Thank you. I think it's a very important step for this council to take. Any more questions, comments? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. I think that you might want to say that we all are, and not just some of us, Councillor Beekman. And so I'd like to say that as what I've said earlier, is that that we love every person for who they are and what they bring to Coaldale and who they mean. We all have family members. Every one of us have family members who are have gone down a different road and I love every one of them. So whether they're LGBTQ, as some of us have family members that are. I think that we are inclusive in that way. I guess with regards to the motion, is this motion something that we can amend a policy to include that terminology, Kaylin, or is this a policy that we have to dictate to the rest of the community as to what they must do in our community? I think that we should be speaking for the policies that council bears and not for policies that other community members believe in or don't believe in.
Go ahead.
Through the chair. There's a number of different options available to council in terms of how they go about this, to what extent, in what areas. And I think in hearing with the mayor's statement, some type of a committee, like there are a number of different ways to approach this. I can offer that at the administrative level, we do have an employee handbook that covers off the importance of inclusion, non-discrimination, underscores the human rights legislation. So it's not that we don't have anything in place as an employer as we speak. To what extent council wants this to be more of a more global policy statement for community facilities, value statements, like that will be up to council to decide that scope at that committee level. I'm just sharing that this is what we have in place at the administrative level, regardless of which direction this particular initiative may take, if that follows.
Thank you, Kaylin. I just want to ensure that we're leading by example and that our policies already have in place those stipulations, and I'd be very uncomfortable if we were I guess literally discriminating as to who we hire, who we don't hire, how we're treated, even around this council table. And personal experience speaks to that. So I wanted to ensure that we're all carefully included. And I think as Deputy Mayor Abrey and I have had long chats before in times, and we support each other in these types of cases. So I support the motion as proposed.
Thank you. And then also, we're not the only municipality that's looking at doing this, so there's lots of these decisions and policies in place elsewhere, so we can look for information by reaching out to other municipalities as well. Okay, so Councillor Beekman is going to sponsor the motion. I'll read it back one more time. Direct administration to come back with a staff report. And I just got to confirm with our municipal clerk, our next meeting is in July is the 11th? And we can tweak that date when she looks it up.
We have 2 meetings left before the summer break,
Yes.
the June 27th and then the July 13th.
July 13th? Okay, I thought I had that wrong.
July 11th.
July 11th?
Today's the 13th.
Okay. Okay, so one more time, direct administration to come back with a staff report for our July 11th meeting on how the town of Coaldale can be strongly committed to the principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion to make sure that all persons, including racialized persons, persons of color, women, Indigenous persons, persons with disabilities, LGBTQ2S plus persons, and others feel welcome in our community. Okay, the motion's on the floor. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10.1, we have a council committee report. This evening we have Councillor Reis speaking on her committee appointment with the Birds of Prey Foundation. Councillor Reis.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Good evening, Council. This evening I'll be presenting a report from a committee that I'm on, the Alberta Birds of Prey Foundation. On May 17th, I met with the president of the Alberta Birds of Prey Foundation, Don Wentz, along with Colin Weir, the founder and operator. Since then, I've had 3 meetings with Colin, where he took me on an in-depth tour of the facility, literally walking through the wetlands, concluding the meetings with a slideshow to provide more information on how the Birds of Prey came to be. showing what the landscape looked like back in the 80s before there was ever a wetland on that parcel of land, their successes, their challenges, and growth of the birds of prey along the way. Colin first began the Bird Rescue Center in 1982 with Wendy Slater, another avid bird lover, when they realized there were few options to help injured owls or hawks. At that time, it was forbidden to keep raptors in captivity, injured or otherwise. So Weir lobbied for legalized custody to rehabilitate these birds. At that time, Tabor Warner MLA Bob Bogle led legislative changes and helped secure funding for a dedicated facility. The site offered was a heavily cultivated, flood-prone 28 hectares on the edge of town, but Weir and Slater had their start and transformed the land into an avian sanctuary. Since then, the Alberta Birds of Prey Centre and the wetlands that are a vital component of the facility have become established in its function as a wildlife sanctuary, attracting a wide variety of species of birds and wildlife in our region, and in turn, prompting more than 20,000 visitors and tourists each year. I firmly believe that we as a council need to support the Alberta Birds of Prey Foundation in its goal of turning the Alberta Birds of Prey Centre into a wetland slash sanctuary of provincial significance and status. As known, the town has an extraordinary asset with the wetlands at the Alberta Birds of Prey Centre. It truly is another one of our town's hidden gems, with no other place like it province-wide. In an attempt for open lines of communication and transparency, I feel it would be Council's benefit and advantage for us, along with our CAO, to have a private tour of the facility in the coming weeks in which we can all see firsthand Mr. Weir's concerns, successes, and accomplishments. It would also provide for a good opportunity to receive more information and have some key questions addressed and or clarified. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reis, any questions or comments? You got to turn your mic on. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. Very great report. I appreciate it, and hearing the history, including having former MLA Bob Bogle in your report. And I was just curious again, how many visitors does the Birds of Prey receive every year?
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Over 20,000.
So, speaking in favor of the comment that you made regarding council going on a tour of the facility, I would like us to do that. So, is you wish to make a motion to that effect, or how would you like to do that?
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryn. Yes, I would like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion directing administration to draft a letter under the signature of Mayor Jack Van Ryn to Colin Weir requesting to organize a private tour of the Birds of Prey facility that includes council, our CAO, and senior members of our administration team, deemed to be relevant to be included in the tour, such as our Director of Growth and Investment and Economic Development, our Director of Operations, and other members of operations, including engineers. Thank you.
That's quite the motion. Thank you. Any further questions or comments for Councillor Reis? I'll call the question on your motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Excellent report.
Thank you.
You keep setting the bar so high.
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryn.
Okay, moving on to correspondence. We have agenda item 11.1, the Shadow Minister for Rural Economic Development. That we received a letter from them, and they're asking for our administration team to, and I'll just read it off the letter. It says, "We kindly ask you to express the 3 most important issues impacting your economic development as a rural community." So this has got Cameron Mills written all over it. So is there any appetite to for a motion to direct administration to respond to the Deputy Shadows Minister for Rural Economic Development with the 3 most important issues impacting our economic development as per the letter that was circulated. Deputy Mayor Abrey.
Thank you, Mayor Van Ryn. I'm not really sure what the validity of doing this would be, besides giving them some speaking notes in Parliament. Being the Liberals and NDPs have teamed together, that agenda is already being pushed forward federally. So as a shadow minister, I respect that, and they are the official opposition, but how much time do we want our administration to put into something that I think is going to be just for naught, when we've got 2 parties with completely different, have sided together to push a different agenda through, which...
Questions or comments? So then, Deputy Mayor Abrey, do you wish to make a motion of some sort then?
Motion to receive this as information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? There's a motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. You're off the hook, Mr. Mills. Okay, moving on to information item 12.1. The Alberta Utility Commission, they sent a response to the letter that we sent out regarding our utility rates. Any questions, comments about that letter? Councillor Chapman.
Well,
Okay, just hold that thought. And then item 12.2, the Southern Alberta Kanadier letter that we received regarding the Mennonite community. Let me just pull that up here for a sec. So the letter was drafted by Dan Dirksen. He's the chair.
I know.
And they're asking if we would consider joining their committee. Councillor Chapman, you have a question, comment?
Our FCSS are very involved with the LGM community, and I'm not too sure how much more we can do in there in terms of the town. I don't see a clear request from them.
Well, the request is that we want to join their committee. So one option is that we could have them come and present at a future council meeting.
I'll just receive for information. In the meantime, invite them to make a presentation to our town council. I know Dan Dirksen quite well, actually.
Okay, well then we don't need to receive for information. You just make a motion for them to attend then. Yeah. Okay, so a motion to send a letter asking that. Bear with me one second. A motion to invite Dan Dirksen, board chair, to present at our July 11th meeting. Would that work?
Yeah, that would be perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And then information item 12.3, Municipal Affairs, reintroduction of VLTs, dated May 25th, 2022. So when you read through the letter, it basically shows that the town of Coaldale has fulfilled all the legislative requirements for the reintroduction of VLTs. Any further discussion on that item? Okay, thank you. And then moving on to item 12.4, the Stars of Alberta Volunteer Awards. And that was part of the package as well. Questions or comments? Seeing none, moving on to 12.5, SEWA, the Southern Alberta Energy from Waste Association briefing update. So they were recently awarded a $143,000 funding grant. Mm-hmm. And then item 12.6, Barons Rika Warner Family Community Support Services, a report to municipalities. Any questions, comments on that one? Seeing none, then I would need a motion that we receive for information items 12.1, 12.3, 12.4, 12.5, and 12.6. Councillor Reis made that motion. Councillor Chapman, you got your mic on? You have? Okay. No further comments. I'll call the question on Councillor Reis's motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So that closes the open portion of the meeting. So at 5:50 p.m., that council move into closed session in accordance with Section 197-2 of Municipal Government Act to discuss matters exempt from disclosure for item 13.1, subject to FOIP Section 16, third-party business interests, and Section 25, economic and other interests of a public body. Item 13.2, subject to FOIP Section 24, advice from officials. Item 13.3, subject to FOIP Section 16, third-party business interests, and Section 25, economic and other interests of a public body. And item 13.4, subject to Section 17, subject to personal privacy. Can I get someone to make that motion, please? Councillor Beekman. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll take a 10-minute break.